Buenas noches. Vengo hoy como emisario del equipo Stones and Serpents. Sean todos bienvenidos. En 2025, un grupo de productores, documentalistas y artistas se reúnen en torno a un guión. Unos meses después, esto da origen a una producción intercontinental chileno-maltesa que los embarca en una expedición, por aire, por mar y por tierra. Este proyecto audiovisual se encuentra en pleno crisol, en periodo de filmación y construcción, generando vínculos entre culturas, mixturas de lenguajes y experiencias que están marcando a cada uno de los que formamos parte. Los ancestros, los espíritus, los mares y volcanes, los templos olvidados y los secretos por develar constituyen nuestra materia prima. Y a través de la lente se registra una experiencia, una vivencia que debe ser una ofrenda, un trabajo que debe abrir una puerta. Esto es lo que significa Stones and Serpents. Hoy queremos presentarles el segundo capítulo de nuestra serie History is Inquiry, donde junto al Dr. Ammon Hillman estaremos compartiendo diferentes informaciones, la evidencia de nuestra historia, la voz de ellos mismos que vuelve a la vida a través de sus propios textos. Hoy rastrearemos el culto, encontraremos el éxtasis, el estado maníaco que abre la percepción. ¿De dónde viene la tecnología perdida que permite la iniciación de un ser humano? ¿Cómo se ha transformado y dónde está ahora? Bienvenidos a History is Inquiry. Okay, Ammon. So when we look ancient Greece and we talk about the cult, what are we referring to?
We're referring to mystery initiation and the performance of the Bacchic chorus. And this is going back into the Bronze Age and follows the evolution of language itself. That's what we're talking about when we talk about the cult. The people who are speaking within the cult are using Greek.
So we can infer that or not even infer, like the cult was initiated, or this initiation rites, let's say the first one, or when it begins, when, at the moment that begins, is in actual Greece. We know that it was not called Greece, let's say, but in that area at that point, or we can trace it back to some other place.
The awakening that's brought by the initiation, that act itself, that is the mystery cult, is using Greek terminology to express itself. So we are limited by the fact that it is found in Greek, and we can see that there are things that are being borrowed in the language from Thrace. We can see that there's Black Sea cult activity. So if you really want to go to the mother of the cult, you go to the Black Sea, and specifically along the coast, both south, east, and north, you're going to find the acts of initiation that are meant to, through death and resurrection, to bring the person to a novel form of existence, something they called ion.
So when can we time frame a bit this? When we are talking about that is you're talking about the Black Sea, but this was happening before then it came, because when we talk about like the cult in Greece, we tend to time frame it in, I don't know, like 800 BC and forward. But it seems to be like it's coming from before, isn't it?
Yes, what's going on in the 9th and 8th centuries is just a reaction to what's happened in the Bronze Age, the Middle and Late Bronze Age. So, how do we track the cult? We track it through the drugs that they are using, because those are actual physical entities. The purple that is used in the initiation of the cult is coming to us at its earliest from Bronze Age Mycenaean sites. That's where the tech is wrapped up. It's wrapped up in those places that you can't call Greece. There is no nation Greece. There are people scattered across the Mediterranean who use Greek, and they are from all different nationalities, all different ethnicities, whatever you want to categorize a person by. They're from different types. They're unified by one thing, and that one thing is the Greek language. So archaeologically, we're seeing the cult emerge in the Bronze Age. And that is fitting, because at this time is when we see individuals, actual historical people who reflect that cult within the Bronze Age. For example, Medea, perfect example. She is that mistress, that princess who is a priestess of Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, this Amazonian deity that is a mixture of the Greek Artemis and Aphrodite together. And she is that priestess who serves that cult along with the magic. So, I mean, this is all established in temples and in colleges and in the production of oracles. So it's very important to say, look, how do we track the cult to its origin? The closest we can get is with the artifacts that they've left behind, that they were using, and those are the drug artifacts. And that's why it's so important to consider that for all the hoo-ha that we have had academically about Indo-European this and what culture started what, and the interference of the biblical studies, right? Because at this time that there are Mycenaean cults that are operating, an initiation that is meant to kill and then reawaken the psyche. When that world is operating, we have material evidence for them, and not for any of the other biblical history that you've ever heard about. None of that is actually happening. But this world is. This world is. So when the Greeks said that the Judeans started out as Spartans who migrated to Judea. They're doing that because they've lived within a world that has preserved the evidence for us to see what was going on. And that's all in Greek. There's no other language at this time that's, people are surprised that the Mycenaean purple workshops come before the Phoenician involvement in the purple trade. Because everybody has assumed that the Phoenicians were the ones who were doing this, and they weren't. So that shows up in the Greek. We have the Mycenaean Greek word for the purple. That's a concrete. You can take that thing home to the bank with you. Definitely.
Okay, and so when we are talking about Mycenaean, Mycenas in Spanish, we're talking about Bronze Age, isn't it?
Correct.
Correct. Which will be 1,200 BC, isn't it? Like that kind of at the end of it, let's say, the late.
Yeah, from the middle to the end, I'm good with the workshops and whatnot, and the tech with all the drugs, and the actual cult worship being middle to late. You can say 1500-ish to maybe 1100 BC, somewhere in that range. Give yourself a little understanding of what the people are like by saying, look, the things that we get in Homer, the presentation of the world that's in Homer, that is a late Bronze Age world. So
I was hearing the other day this guy that he was talking about exactly that, and it was like we don't know how Homer could know all of that, because supposedly there is like this kind of blackout of everything from like 1100 BC till like 800. So how Homer get it, like from where? So they don't know how he can create all of this. So it was this idea that it seems like they call it the Dark Ages, I guess, like the Dark Ages of the spot. I don't know. I heard that before. I never get much thought about it, but the other day that I was hearing this presentation of a guy that he was talking about, I don't even remember like especially what he was talking about, but that got into my mind that Homer was taking something from Bronze Age, but how he got that?
Yeah, how do you transmit those ideas across time? It's always through the logos. They are actively quoting things all the time. So you'll see references in ancient Greek scholars who talk about pre-Homeric epics. How do they even know what the hell a pre-Homeric epic was about? They say they're about Medea, most of them. Why is that even possible? Because they are passing down. If you read any ancient Greek from the earliest in Homer, right, to the lyric poets, if you read that stuff, you realize they're constantly quoting songs. Constantly. These songs are out there. They exist for the people who are gathering the information. Homer doesn't live, and he's not the first guy. He didn't just pick up a guitar and say, I'm going to sing and make music, right?
Why is this idea of this dark blackout? What happened there? I mean,
yeah, post Bronze Age, dark era where the pottery all looks like crap now. It's all linear, right? And it's all, oh God, who wants that? It's not sophisticated. It's not, even happy. What happened? All the scholars get together and they say, let's figure out what kind of destruction there must have been. Is that when Thera blew up? Do we have a mass migration? Look, there's always mass migrations. Anyway, what am I doing? I'm fingering you a little bit, right? Because we're just coming up with ideas.
What
What is
about
the
these sea
reality?
people? What about these sea people that they like to talk about? Like the sea people
Right.
came and destroyed everything. Like they were like coming from I don't know, like some kind of super warrior or something. I never understood that
M-
part. So,
Migrations of different kinds of people causing great societal change. We're going from the Bronze Age Cyclopean architecture with these big ass stones that they're building that our texts will tell us were built so well you couldn't see the seam between the stones. That's how good the architecture was. We're going from descriptions of that into what you can only describe as, some kind of backward slide. And people have scholars for years have tried to figure out what the hell happened. Were there migrations? Absolutely. How do we know that? From the language itself. Because, there's like Thracian that's embedded in ancient Greek, there's Phrygian, there's what can only be a language spoken from 5000 BC, Chalcolithic language of the Pelasgians. That's embedded in Greek. So that's the kind of evidence that we have to work with. If you really want to know the cult, don't sit around and think about theories. What do we have in the language and what do we have in the archaeology that shows us what's going on? In the archaeology, we've got the drugs there. We've got the drugs there. In the last 5 years, they have discovered more drugs that I have ever seen in all my lifetime
yeah,
that were used in antiquity.
I was watching this. It was about the well, I saw it like 3 months, or even more, like 6 months ago. These findings in Spain. We were actually recording in Spain at that time, but we couldn't manage to go to the Baleares because I guess the founding was in Menorca Island, I guess, or one of those. So I had a friend.
With the hair analysis,
Yeah, the her analysis.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and the other one will be the other day. I saw that you were showing another one, this perfume thing. They were
The shit Christing is what you're talking about, right? And
the
it's
perfume.
the medicine that's made of feces. Please bring this to the world through your documentary, please.
Do
The
you remember?
medicine that
Do you
uses the
remember?
feces.
I'm sorry, but yeah, well, we'll go. Let's go into that. But do you remember in? I know you've been in Greece in Athens in the museum because we were in contact at that time when we were over there. And did you see that it was a lot of very similar artifacts, like very, let's say this exactly the same, and a lot of them that they have over there, but they have they have this legend or this script that they put there for everybody to see when you go and you see, let's say you see a stone and they tell you like this stone was the stone of, I don't know. So supposedly all of them were like perfume things, or they don't really know what it was all about, and like this dildo shape artifact was used to, I don't know, like to put a bit of of perfume in your neck. So, but
Right.
did you realize that this is that's crazy because um, well, this is way off topic. It's not in the what I have to keep with this that I have prepared here, but yeah, for me it was very interesting and surprising that a lot of things were like kind of okay. We'll give you like this story for tourists. It's not like somebody that will actually want to know what is this all about. You will find that they will give you some very superficial or not even they don't even know what it is.
It's
But
lost. It's lost technology and lost history, and we don't even understand it. You mentioned the dildo. We don't even understand that dildos are used in ceremony. Dildos are used in medicine. Dildos are just applicators. And we don't understand it when we look at their art. We don't understand it when we read their texts, because we read their texts with our own knowledge and awareness, or our own modern read of the world. And that's a huge mistake. And it costs us that knowledge of that history. They're just now looking at all the drugs. Last 5 years, they're just now finding all the drugs that are involved and bringing us a picture of a complex world where drugs are becoming the mainstay of religion and governance, and the way that you live in the world in order to produce democracy, where the neighborhood has the voice, is through an instrument that has been tuned to bring us that perfection of voice. This is a human being. The mystery is all about waking people up. And there are certain things that you don't understand because you're dead. If you were living, you would know that you have a voice. You would know what that means. Not just that you can say, oh, it's my right to speech and all of that hoo-ha. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the mechanics of the universe that are being taught to people in religious instruction that uses drugs, sexuality, music to create the death and life that is the cosmos. And when I say cosmos, I mean the organization of the universe, right? The big prophecy of the apocalyptic world is the return of that feminine power, that lady of Babylon, simply because she is the mystery. You were asking about whether bodies can become mechanisms for producing drugs and whether they looked at it that way. And that was a perfect illustration, Bruno, of the differences between us and them. Because that's a silly question to them. Are you serious? What do you think milk is? What do you think milk is? Right? It's absurd that you don't understand that your own body was meant, in this case, to produce a specific substance that is itself a medicine. You are the generator of the medicine. So,
and at the same time, what you're saying, because that's the perfect example you just gave. Like, yeah, what do you think is milk? Of course, it's coming from a body that is making a lot of chemical reactions at some point, and is creating something that it will have an effect in another human being. But the thing that I wanted to ask you, which seems like the text is also telling that they were even able to actually manipulate a bit of that, like to take this human being, and because the milk will happen, like you're like a woman becomes a mother, or she's able to do it at a certain age. It's like embedded in the DNA, or I don't know, but the capability of go and actually interfere with that for a specific aim, or for a specific right, or for a specific medicine. I'm sure it was about that. That's what also is absolutely, I guess that's the question, like how they were able to do this. This is what the text is saying to us.
we sustain our own immortality with the ambrosia that we Christ. Right? Aphrodite is Aphrodite because of the ambrosia. right?
Mhm.
From the very beginning, that is a body product, the ambrosia. It flows in the veins of the gods. When you nurse from Demeter, the goddess, that milk that you are taking is divine. It is going to purge your corruption and to open up your capacity, your divine capacity. That's why people who are born again through initiation say, damn, I wish this would have happened years before.
Mhm. Yeah,
Because it
we have
opens up.
very prominent figures, like even in Roman times, we're
Correct.
talking about that. Yeah.
Correct. Correct. This process of initiation is a piece of life that is necessary for you to live to your full capacity. Without it, you're not capacitated. You're not in a place where you can exercise that divinity. And what's absolutely glorious is there's a formula for all this, and it has to be followed a specific way. And the people who are involved in doing it are saying, look, you can take someone's milk and you can fine tune it in order to bring back the divinity, in order to burn off that child's mortality. It's going to come through that milk. And the doctors are talking about different types of milk and what these different types. Now, milk is not the only product, right?
Mhm.
What about seed? What about seed, right? What does milk do, right? It builds the flesh, right? It thickens, it congeals, it builds the flesh. What does that seed do? That seed implants fire, right? If you don't implant the fire in your child, you're not going to be able to milk her in the future.
But I'm
So
sorry,
that's
what?
why we have,
Oh.
right? You look at the figures who are involved in the creation of these oracles, and it's everybody that comes down to, in the classics, 5th century Greece, when they are developing democracy. It's everything that has been worked on up to that point by all the famous people, all the people that we know about because we write things down about them, like Solon and stuff like that. There is an inseparable nature to the development of freedom and liberty in the Mediterranean world and the operation of the mystery, the creation of the oracle or the oracular state, that bridge, that biological act that all of us should do, but we don't.
Mhm.
And in not doing so, we reject the gift and we receive the nemesis instead. You want that instead? Then become a bunch of pedos, right? Become a bunch of pedos. Why can I say that with such confidence? Because they are putting the virgin on the hill. They are protecting the virgin as inviolable. It's only at that point that their religions can create this umbrella to shield the rays of radiation bombarding us and create the world of a protected virgin. You need that virgin's protection in order to operate the mystery. Athena herself is so wrapped up with the mystery that she is feeding the seed of God her own ambrosial blood that is making him the immortal half snake, half dude. So the whole echidnaic priesthood of the virgin viper, remember, she's the Bronze Age woman oracle who raped Heracles, right?
Yeah, we talked about that last time. I've seen
all of these
this is the
rapes,
snake you're talking about
yes, and all of
with the
these,
snake legs.
yes, no, she doesn't have snake legs.
Not she, but
She's
the
half
thing.
virgin, half viper,
I know.
right?
The
So
king.
this is that Bronze Age world that we're not perceiving,
Mhm.
that is influencing. You say your great question at the beginning was, how do they know all this stuff, right? Look at what we have. We have the preservation of a female figure who is ruling through the use of narcotics, through the use of drugs, psychotropics that are heavy, 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 right? And we have a record of rapes throughout the Mediterranean from this Bronze Age, right? Whether they're raping women or raping men. So it's when you talk about the origins of the mystery, the cult itself, you must realize it's coming out of this, and from this darkness of the rape comes the central pillar that protects the mystery itself, and that is the virgin. You must maintain the virgin as inviolable, or you can't shoot the cosmic rift. It's sorry, you can't. The priests haven't figured out a way to do it. Isn't it weird?
Mhm. So it was being perfected in time, and at some point they were like, okay, man, we have this technology. We have to be able to have some kind of order in our society to protect this technology we're already using for a long time. We get this from another time, and it gets perfected and perfected. And yeah, at some point you need to protect that oracle, that region. This is what I'm understanding. Like trying
Yeah.
to put it in like simple words, let's say,
Yeah.
because obviously nothing of this is simple, but
No,
let's understand
exactly.
it that way, you know? Like
Yeah.
mhm. It had to be done to be able
Yes.
to be using the technology, but for because I can imagine if you have that, you will start to create your own stuff. Somebody will start to create another stuff over there, and they will be doing different mysteries using the same drugs, the same technology, and it could go freaking crazy, I guess. Probably that happened.
It's like a rush to patent the technology or something. They create a mystery and then cover it up so that the clergy is the group that has the ability to make the mystery work. Right? And ultimately it makes sense because ultimately it comes down to one woman's body. That's how delicate the process is. So you're not even going to get oracles if you can't make the biochemistry work. You're not going to end up in that place. So it's something that they're protecting by using a well-educated priesthood to be able to conduct and perform. And we don't understand how influential that is, but ultimately realize that they are tying this to something that I don't understand myself, but they are able to draw time together somehow. And there's a lot of the physics that are being examined by the people like the pre-Socratics that have to do with time and the manipulation of time. And an oracle, if you think about it, is just that. Because the oracle is basically telling you what's going to happen to you. It's the ultimate instruction in life. That's why, as we showed in episode 1, the question that you ask an oracle is called your history, right? That's what you're bringing them, is that inquiry. So somehow they understand the physics of the time and are able to do things that they're able to plant seeds that will come to fruition within generations. And I know that our society doesn't build like this at all. I don't know if there's any form of government on the planet that is planting the seeds of the spread of its own freedom that it protects at its core. right? And they did this through oracles, right? In so many generations, so much will happen. I know we talked about that, but it's something that you just can't stay away from.
Got this from hundreds of years that it was coming from Bronze Age. So what I would like to go into after is like if we already understand that this was not originated in this specific geographically area that now we call ancient Greece, like the Aegean, Turkey, and what we know it was, like the whole different parts of Greece at that time, of the Greek culture. Where is this pointing? Like towards where you already said about the Black Sea, but can we talk about like specifics, like specific cultures that we can see in the text, or that is very evident that there is a connection? You already mentioned a bit of that, but you think we can dive into those cultures a bit to understand how
Yeah.
this connection happened?
Yeah, once again, very straight and direct. Um, Go right back to the drugs and say, who's actually starting to use this stuff, right? Are these Greek-speaking peoples? Who are these people? Where are they from? And it just so happens we have the evidence of exactly where it's coming from. It's coming from the east coast of the Black Sea, at the convergence of the four rivers of Eden, right? Um, this this is the place where she who became the first Christ was practicing. Right? Remember how I said we've got to get it through the drugs? That the drugs are the line, the scientific line through the dark cave that we have to hold on to. How can we say where this thing started? I can fart a bunch of nonsense to you and just come up with theories. No, bullshit. What does the evidence point to? The evidence points to one person starting this rite, which makes sense because the rite is dependent upon your genes. It's dependent upon what your body can produce, right? It's dependent upon your sex. So, to answer your question directly, we can trace it back to the place where we see the first Christ herself actually performing the rite. This is the Bronze Age, Eastern Black Sea. Bronze Age, Eastern Black Sea. And these kingdoms, and they are kingdoms, they're tyrannies. These tyrannical kingdoms are the leading edge of the tech that is pushing, that's enabling this one priestess to emerge, the
Okay,
one Christ.
okay, 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 understand. I'm on. All good.
Let's do it.
I have the chorus is the evangelic chorus is done now. Who had them in the background
Good.
before?
Good. Hey, I speaking of that, I found some Byzantine hymns that will knock your socks off. You'll be surprised to find out how satanic the cult has become in Byzantine, holy songs. Anywho,
Okay, so I want to know it all, man, because we know that the information we have from where this was coming from is from the Greek, which is afterwards, isn't it? So
which is after what?
after, I mean, the information we get about the possible source of this knowledge, ideas, cult, as we're talking about now, like the cult, it was just the Greeks themselves were talking about it, isn't it? Like that's why we can infer where it's coming from. And you were saying that we have evidence that where this is coming from. So that will be the Greeks themselves talking about this, isn't it?
Correct. As early as the Mycenaean Greek.
Okay.
So go all the way back to 1500 BC, because we're going to have the word for the holy purple that's used in their rites. It appears in text. So,
And can we go into like a specific people, let's say, or who these people we're talking about? I've heard about I heard about Scythian connection. I heard about this Asia Minor connection also at some other point or at the same time. I don't know. So if you can elaborate in who these people are who is these people we're talking about that we're getting this tech or this first ideas that after becomes the mystery and the whole culture that we're talking about after in the Aegean and
we as civilized Greek-speaking peoples of the Mediterranean, we are getting our mystery right from a Scythian culture that lives in a world of constant change. They are mobile horse tribes that are known for their incredibly strict enforcement of certain social norms, certain customs. For example, get out of here. We don't want you around. So if we catch you here, we're going to kill you. And we may breed with you or eat you. But this is the culture that produces the 12 bodyguards of the first Christ. So when Medea comes out Christing and spreading, so to speak, her ministry of Christing, she's spreading it around villages. She is creating Bacchic choruses by drugging people. When she begins to do this, she doesn't go by herself. She has a bodyguard of 12 Scythian women. And those 12 Scythian women are known for their martial skill as well as their knowledge of drugs. So all of that, again, notice how we're back to the drugs, right? Because that's the anchor, that's the real. That's what's really going on, their use of these drugs. And so this Scythian culture is a horse culture, it's mobile, and everything that the Greek-speaking world is writing about these barbarians, because to the Greek-speaking world, they are barbarians. They don't speak Greek. That qualifies you as a barbarian. So these barbarians who have this advanced knowledge of the drugs, whose leaders are these terribly despotic women who are performing acts of cruelty that ripple across the Mediterranean to keep everybody in control. And that scares the Greek-speaking world. But this is the origin. This type of world where your queen is surrounded by her greatest intelligences is coming from an advanced culture that is encountering another advanced culture in the Greek-speaking world that at the time is raising an umbrella. The Mycenaean Greek world is raising an umbrella over the Eastern Mediterranean so that civilizations can be planted. And they're only doing this because their oracles are going through these ceremonies where they are receiving instructions from the invisible beings that are around you that you can't see until you're initiated. So these tribes of Amazonians who are raiding and hustling the Greek world, they're ultimately going to form the policing power of Athens. But for now, in the Bronze Age, they're just delivering to us a form of religion that is some kind of cult. And when I say cult, I mean cultus in Latin is the way that you grow your fields. It's the way that you use nature to produce. The cult that performs the mystery initiation is using nature that is being absorbed through a non-Greek speaking world. And that is marking the Greek response. It is creating, it's like fertilizer for Mother Greek herself to grow. So, yeah, it's gorgeous, absolutely.
Well, Ammon, if you don't mind, I would like to go. I know that besides you're a philologist, you also studied a little bit, or not a little bit. You studied bacteriology, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it? Because of your research. So you think we can go a little bit about what do we know that because I understand that the drugs or the use of nature, let's say, which is we're talking about the same, is very prominent, and it's very important to actually understand for they to understand what they were doing in their own culture. So do we know something about what actually they were using? Like, can we name animals, plants, concoctions, or whatever? Do we know something about that?
Yeah, and that's what's so unfortunate is that it's so broad. So when you say, what were they using in the Mithraic rite that we have the liturgy of here that talks about what drugs to prepare? Fantastic. We've got a list. We've got a list of plants and of animal toxins right there that we're going to use. Okay. We're going to throw in a little gladiator's liver. Oh, God, that boosts the whole thing. You know what I mean? So yes, we have all of these substances, and they're all plants and animals that are living in the Mediterranean. They're the local species that they have used over ages. Now, here's what's really going to blow your mind. People who use these drugs and make these concoctions from plants and animal substances, they're using things that don't grow locally, right? So colchicum, colchis is where Medea's from. And if you've discovered that plant, you know what it can be used for. It can be used for gout under certain circumstances, right? Or you can use it to induce a mania. You can kill with it. There's all sorts of things you can do with it. That's a local drug that she was pioneering. She was known to have pioneered, her family was known to have pioneered aconite, which is terribly, terribly poisonous. It's lethal. There's no reason you're using aconite except to induce like death states. That's why they call it a thanasimon. It's a death inducer. Terrible drug, right? But they're using it locally. But here's the strange thing that'll blow your mind. She's using drugs that are not local. Drugs that you have to get way across the Mediterranean. So the craft of the Bronze Age medical, priestly witchcraft, if you want to call it that, it's at such a high level that you and I, the common people, can't do this kind of stuff. And you and I, looking back on it, can we replicate it? We have tons of lists of the different drugs and what counteracts what and what's used by whom.
Mhm.
Right?
And this and
Um,
this but this kept going after also in history, I guess. Like they
yeah,
were actually going and reviewing what they were doing, and they were using that knowledge hundreds of years after, you know what I mean? It
correct,
created a bit. Can you
correct.
elaborate a bit on that connection? That like what we know, I guess, is because of text that was written after. That's what I was
Right,
going before, isn't it?
right.
Hmm.
Um, what drugs can you use to influence a person's thinking? These are the drugs that the physicians later, as you said, they're writing later. Physicians later, Hippocratic physicians later, are sitting around writing about Dioscorides, the opening of the Roman Empire. Oh, he's sitting around, he's collecting works, he's getting all of his recipes together to show you what goes with what. He's building a theory of how these drugs are interacting. All of that is built upon that earlier technology that we just see the tip of the iceberg of when we look at the purple production in the Mycenaean workshops. They're doing the same thing. They have to come up with words for it. So they are using drugs, for example, that puts you into a different mental state. I have text that I'm bringing just tomorrow about that. They put you into a completely different mental state. What kind of mental state do you want to be put into? It depends on the drugs that are being used and the way that they're applied. These are not clinics where you walk in and the doctor gives you a prescription and you go and get it. No, this is where you are treated on site using a craft that's far more complex than you can imagine. Just think of it this way. If they are working on changing the human body into a vessel for different types of salvific substances, certain types of drugs that will bring you what they call a salvation. Remember the gospel? Gospel, evangelia, is a word that means the efficacy of the drug you are applying. As a physician, what is that drug combo's gospel? It is salvation. So we're looking at the world in a way that once you start studying how they're using these drugs and its history, um, everything else that we perceive seems absurd. Let me give you one example.
Hmm.
People, when I was in school and coming up through graduate school, the big debate was: are the oracles getting high? And the overwhelming majority said no, but they are recordedly performing these specific actions that look like they're some kind of mind altering, drug induced situation. So we can't ignore them. The very fact that they were debating that 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the very fact that they were debating that is a joke. Within 5 minutes, I can show any classicist texts that show how they were using the drugs. In the rites, we have this evidence there. It's only because we've come through monism that we've rejected this evidence as evidence. So it's political too. It gets very political. The censorship of what's out there. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, so I think as we were tracing the cult, this figure appears um, because you were talking about Bacchic um, cult. So I guess we're talking about Bacchus. isn't it? There is that seems to be like these misconceptions of like or misconception all the time. Like you talk about Baco here in Spanish, and yeah, obviously they will tell you, okay, yeah, this is the god of wine of the Romans. So obviously it's not Roman time because we're talking about the Bacchic cult that is coming like way before, isn't it? So what I wanted to ask you is about who is this figures of Bacchus, and if we can get into what the text says about the actual influence of this concept um, happens, like practically, like that there were, what is this Bacchic thing? What is this?
Yeah, and interestingly, the Bacchic cult starts with women. Bacchic cult is an ecstatic state that can be entered by a woman who is following a very specific cult regimen and uses very specific cult tools. So we know, in this case, we know that the Bacchants, who are women, originally women, remember we talked about the Scythians. Some of these tribes are just completely women, right? Um, this is not the same world that you see in the integrated world that we live in. So these Bacchic women are able to enter into an ecstatic state that is the possession of Bacchus, right? We don't know what Bacchus is. Right? Let me just say that one more time. We don't know what Bacchus is. We can guess at what it means to be Bacchic, but we don't even know where the word comes from. So, to the Greeks, this foreign nature of the Bacchic cult was a real problem in a lot of Greek city states. They didn't want to absorb this worship. This is coming from these women, these Maenads in the East, and they are using these dildos and snakes to do something that will cause havoc and rain, confusion, and slaughter on our little cities. It's not good. So, this is the Bronze Age Bacchic worship that we see that ultimately develops into the very pacified and civilized masculine and feminine worship of Dionysus. Yes, as the god of wine. As the god of wine. That's what it becomes. And we get the stage in Athens through that worship. But people have to realize the cult, from its origin, is really a place. It's a place that a woman can project herself in order to be filled with the God. And the God causes her to do things like kill people. Right? Kill people. Remember where these cults are coming from? People wash up on our shore. Hey, it's their fault, right? Let's play with them. Let's use some drugs on them, right? This is the society that creates Bacchus. The Greeks have a word, bacheo, bacheo, and it contains that old Mycenaean digamma. And it means to be in the Bacchic maniacal murderous state.
Ammon, do we know? Do you have do we have some sources that they will talk about, like to give an example when, because okay, this comes from Bronze Age, but after this was read from this new culture after it's coming from there, and it becomes something that a bit different, but what what keep what the cult will keep? How will you look at the influence of this Bacchus after?
You'd have to see two things, both of them in Athens. You see the development of the stage and theater. That's one place. The other is the Eleusinian mysteries. The mysteries that we celebrate only come to us through this Bacchic procession. In other words, we don't go to any sacred ground unless it's been processed by Bacchus himself. That is the core of the monadic mania. So where do we see this? We see it in the productions of the stage in Athens. You see it in Athens. These are Euripides is borrowing from earlier records. Euripides is quoting. Euripides is digging. Euripides is so into it that his mother is a root collector. And everybody knows from the Greek, everybody knows that these women are fucking nuts. Okay? These women are nuts. They come from a tradition where they hunt people that they mate with. Right? This is where the Bacchic monadic power that creates the first mystery, that is the first mystery, right? Medea, the first Christ, is living in that world of the first mystery, of generating the Bacchic furor. She's actually doing it with actual drugs.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to this new world after, how can we see, how will the whole culture around it will look like? I guess it will be a bit different, not the same as in you know what I mean? Like as in that early stage. Now it becomes Dionysus, it becomes this other kind of rite, but it will be the same because you said that it will be like men involved also, not just women. They embrace this thing and they create what?
They create the absolute mongrelization, the ill breeding of two pea plants that shouldn't have been with each other. They take the offspring, Christianity, and they create the Bacchic power within the Christian ill-bred psychic image producer, which is the church. The church ultimately took, and they did the same thing with Greek. They did the same thing with Mother Greek. They took the language and they corrupted her.
Mm-hmm.
They took away her flexibility. You're no longer actively, as you live, pulling new vocabulary out of the air. You're no longer advancing in your ability to use the logos to explain your surroundings. You're not able to do that anymore. The church took Bacchus and turned Bacchus into exactly what you have now, which is what? It is not. It is anything but the education, training, and preparation of women to be able to meet their peak, to be able to protect us as guardians of the virgin voice. They're the ones who are able to protect us. They have to be potentiated. Doing this to women is how you elevate your society. Watch what happens to them. Watch what they do. It's people, they think this stuff is myth. It's not, people. I've read the doctors who were astounded at the use of the drugs in the different cults, right? please, people, the most popular physician of all time, Galen, right? Galen, he knows one of these priestesses that supplies him with the drugs that are so phenomenally powerful in his medical practice in Rome. He buys 20,000 fucking pills.
Can you talk a bit to us about that person, Galen?
Yeah, Galen, second century physician of Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome. He's giving Marcus, we have documents, his own documents, where he talks about giving Marcus Aurelius the famous theriac. He says it's making him better, it's making him bigger. Oh, his dependence upon opium is getting a little bit too high. Galen doesn't like that. But we see him giving Marcus Aurelius the theriac. Galen, who is the highest physician in the Roman Empire. There's nobody else who has more authority than he does. He's like a surgeon general, except way more. And he comes out and he says, look, we're getting this medicine from Lemnos. And the priestess there that provides it, she is using this technique that goes back to the origin. It goes back to the first oracles. What are they doing on Lemnos with what they call the Lemnian earth and how they're processing it? They're making medicine for the entire Mediterranean through oracular practice. That is, through Bacchic worship. Galen recognizes the knowledge that is locked in the craft of the oracle, and he goes and exploits it by buying 20,000 of these pills to take back to Rome to put in his prescriptions. So the impulse toward freedom and liberty is Bacchus. That drive to want to be a part of that natural world that wants you to survive. That is the power of the Bacchic frenzy. It gives you the freedom to pursue what you need to pursue in order to break that barrier, in order to go like they were doing at Eleusis, where everybody in the Mediterranean is coming for their initiation, how to be prepped. And this is the most important time of your life, right? It's imagine if instead of people going on a trek to Mecca, imagine if they went there and came back with a permanent transformation in the neuropeptides in their brain and the way that their brain was working so that their bodies could do X, Y, and Z, so that their perception was open X, Y, and Z.
And Ammon, will you give us like just like a small golden nugget, like from your background that you can understand like how a peptide will work in your head, what in your brain, what will you think that they were doing? Like, can you give us like in a nutshell, like what actually this kind of drug will activate or not activate, or how this works in your brain? Like, it's like an LSD. What kind of thing are you feeling? We
Yeah,
cannot.
so you've got neuropeptides in your brain that act as communicators. And these communicators influence things like your growth, your sexuality. They are involved in this complex chemical dance that the cult has tapped into. The cult is itself performing the actions of these neuropeptides on its own people. We can now regulate growth. We can regulate puberty. I can take your puberty and put it into a constant state of non-regression. What the hell is that? That's where you will constantly be in a state of development and never come out of it. You will never reach development. Do you understand me? How can we do that? There are a gazillion substances including all of these toxins that we now know influence hormones and hormone receptors.
Like,
they are
can we
influencing
identify
the
that?
human brain.
Sorry. Can we identify it like that? Like
Of
what
course
kind
we
of?
can.
Mhm.
Of course we can. Viper venom activates the same pathways that prolactin does. So the viper venom, when given to a female, can induce the production of milk. And they're already noticing this. They're already talking about different types of milk being produced by the venom, right? Depending on the development of the person, right? So this science that they're doing is just as advanced as what I was doing at the University of Arizona when I was taking brain slices of sheep to identify the anti-gonadotropic peptide. It's decapeptide, one of these peptides that's active in the brain. We're trying to identify what it does. It seems to inhibit pubertal onset. So if we can take that chemical, the idea was in the lab, if we can take that chemical and introduce it to children who are prematurely entering puberty, we can delay that puberty. In other words, I've spent time in a lab where all we were doing was figuring out the architecture of when to start puberty. And if you have the correct peptides, you can do that. It's not a difficulty. It is just nature. You are the base. The cult will show you you are just the base. You must be potentiated. And you're only going to get there through her. Okay? So you do what you want with whatever your belief or your faith is. You're never going to find the salvation of the gospel if you don't have her, the Savior. Right? Soltera. She's the Savior. Yeah. Oh, God.
Fuck. That was just fucking amazing.